those results that we know about?
Well, we're really pleased with the results that we've seen so far. There are a number of seats that are still too close to call, but we've certainly retained our existing seats, picked up the seat of Richmond after a stellar campaign by Gabrielle de Vitry. Still too close to call in Northcote, but it also looks like we've increased our representation in the upper house.
Are you surprised?
Well, what we were hearing on the ground from voters for months on end as we've been campaigning across the state matches with what we've seen tonight. People moving away from the major parties towards parties like the Greens because of the issues we're talking to people about. Stronger action on climate change, stopping new gas drilling, transitioning out of coal, tackling housing affordability and strengthening integrity from day one of the next parliament.
Nonetheless, there were seats like Footscray and Preston that you weren't really talking about much before that might still change a bit.
It's been incredible to see the results coming in for seats like Footscray, Preston, Pascoe Vale, Albert Park is still in play, but a testament to our incredible campaign teams and stellar candidates who've been talking to thousands of voters about the issues that Victorians care about that the major parties have neglected. You know, housing, no announcement or support for renters, despite the housing affordability crisis that Victoria faces.
Now, you addressed this crowd and said, don't believe the spin that's going to come out about having to rely on Liberal preferences. You pointed to figures about Richmond that certainly makes it the case, but isn't it the case that with these other seats that are too close to call, that some might come down to Liberal preferences?
We always aim to win these seats in our own right, and the numbers bear that out. In places like Richmond, you look at our primary vote, where we've increased our vote. We've got progressive minor parties whose preferences might be coming to us, and that's delivered a Greens victory. That was our aim, and that's what we've delivered on tonight.
There was a big focus on the list of reforms that you would like to see in place if you held the balance of power, when everyone was talking about a minority government possibility. Now with a Labor government with a majority, where does that leave the Greens and your ability to press forward with those reforms?
Well, we'll actually be in a stronger position in the next parliament to push that next Labor government to go further and faster on climate action, housing affordability, integrity, and so much more. In the upper house, we still don't know what that's going to look like, but it's on track for a big crossbench once again, increased Greens representation, and you've got to get things through both houses. But our Greens representatives, no matter what number we're in, we push governments to go further and faster. And a lot of the reform we've seen in Victoria, whether it's climate, whether it's inequality, is because Greens put the idea on the table first. We got parliamentary inquiries up, we asked questions of ministers and governments, and that's how you get change.
Thanks, man. Back to you.
This is Victoria Votes live from the ABC Election Centre at South Bank in Melbourne. You can see the tally board starting to fill as the count progresses. It's 10:16 and we have 48% of the vote counted. Let's get the latest on the state of play with our very own Anthony Green.
We'll do the primary vote again. These numbers are settling into a pattern. Labor just over 36, the Liberal Party on 29, the Nationals just under 6, the Greens 12 and others 17. What I wanted to do was go through some of the defeated members of this election. So we've got Neil Angus in Glen Waverley, Ali Cupper in Mildura, Kate Theophanous in Northcote, Richard Reardon in Polwarth, Louise Staley in Ripon. Oh, I hadn't spotted that one. There's another seat which it looks like I haven't had a... Actually, let's have a look at Ripon, because there's a whole series of these seats we just, in the end, haven't had a look at. So let's have a look at the figures in Ripon. It's just passed us by because it was a Liberal sitting member, but we hadn't looked at the figures. So Labor's well ahead on first preferences, 39 to 35. There's an independent there from the shooters, fishers and farmers. The change in primary vote there, the Labor vote's down 3, others up 2. The two-party preferred, we're seeing 38 of 43 booths is a 0.2% swing, which, given it's a notional Labor seat, makes it very difficult for Louise Staley from there. So let's go back to my list of new and defeated members. So there aren't that many defeated members, but there's quite a list of new members. If we can get it up. There we go. Annabelle Cleland is a new member of Euroa, replacing Steph Ryan. John Malahy in Glen Waverley, Ewan Walters in Greenvale, Paul Mercurio in Hastings, Jess Wilson in Kew, which is a good pickup for the Liberal Party to have a new member in Kew, and a well-credentialed woman female MP. Luba Grigorovich in Kororoit, Ella George in Lara, where John Aaron's retiring. Jade Benham in Mildura defeating Ali Cupper. Daniela DiMartino replacing the former Deputy Premier in Monbulk. Martin Cameron picks up Morwell. Belinda Wilson's a new member for Narrawarra North. Campbell Gome for the Greens. Hutch Hussain in Polwarth. Nathan Lambert, the new member for Preston. Gabrielle De Vietri in Richmond. Martha Haler in Ripon. Kim O'Keefe for the Nationals in Shepparton, and Yan Yin, Lauren Carthage. So there's a lot of new members in this parliament and a few surprising departures.
Well, a lot of red bars and green bars there, not too many blue bars.
A lot of retiring Labor members.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's a good point. But Jess Wilson's an interesting one there. I want to go to the tally board and show you here because you can see this is the state of play at the moment. A lot of the bars have been filled in there. But just focusing on a few in particular, look, if you're thinking why Mulgrave, Daniel Andrews' seat, why isn't that filled in yet? Apparently it's because the count is slow, but I mean, Anthony's been telling us no problem there for Daniel Andrews. He'll hold that seat. But you can see there where the Greens have made some inroads. In Northcote, they're ahead. Richmond, they've won. Hawthorn is still too close to call. Over on the Liberal side, though, you can see some of the seats they've lost, but Kew, right now is an ABC projection that Jess Wilson, Anthony, will win the seat of Kew. Is that correct?
I have not had a look at it for a while, so let's...
I've been getting a bit of mail that that's what it looks like.
That's my view too. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's well ahead, 44.7. About 80% of preferences are flowing to Sophie Tawney, but if the vote's about 45, it's enough to get there. Yeah, and like two-party preferred or two-candidate preferred swing, we're seeing at the moment 2.5%, so she should get over the line with 52.
So that's one bit of good news in an otherwise very tough night, David Davis, for the Liberal Party, because as we mentioned earlier in the evening and throughout the night, that's the sort of new member that the Liberal Party really needs. That's the sort of seat the Liberal Party really needs to hold. Can I venture too that there might be a former federal treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, could be looking very closely at a couple of seats here tonight. Kew falls within his seat, or his old seat of Frydenberg that went to Monique Ryan, the Teal Independent. He might take a bit of heart from that, but perhaps might be a little concerned about some of the other territory in his seat. But anyway, that's an interesting one to note there, that the Liberals have at least managed to hold on to that seat of Kew there, Tam. Perhaps we can go over to Cos and Tony and get some thoughts from them on how things are looking there right now. Tony, what do you make of just that one on Kew, and in particular what some of the federal implications there in terms of the Teal impact tonight?
Yeah, well, Jess is an outstanding candidate. She could probably go into as leader next week at this stage.
Well, you heard it here first.
I'm not sure who else
You are joking at the moment, Tony, yeah?
Who else would be a viable option?
I don't know. Perhaps David Davis could have an answer.
Do you have an answer?
Look, that's not my call on national
but have you got any ideas?
tonight. Look, the truth is Matthew has run a strong campaign, and his task will be to... he's obviously got to...
is it a strong campaign,
He's got
though,
to
David?
talk about
You've
things
been
from this...
again.
Certainly there is significant problems.
But you've said it's a strong campaign. Voters have clearly disagreed. So how can you keep saying it's a strong
we're obviously have got assessments that have got to start as we've outlined from the base up.
So is it worth saying that it wasn't a strong campaign?
Look, there were very strong aspects of it, and I think we've got to...
Which bits?
Well, you want me to run through this in detail now? I think there's some policy strengths for sure. There's some new blood that is coming in, which I think is welcome. There's also, I think, a challenge with many of the campaigning aspects as well.
Was the campaign headquarters good enough? Did Sam McQuestion do a good enough job?
I think we're going to have a lot to say about all of that, but I'm going to reserve my judgment on that tonight.
All right, well, we'll keep trying. We'll come back to you and keep trying. But, Tony, just to continue that point, we were looking at Kew, getting your thoughts on the federal implications from how the Teals have performed and what the Liberals need to do to try and fend off a Teal candidate.
Well, I think it shows that there is hope. Josh Frydenberg will be fairly pleased with tonight's result. Hawthorn remains the big problem in the Kooyong electorate. We saw that in the federal results. lots and lots of millennials. I think it's the second highest percentage of millennials
It's
in
a big
Victoria.
demographic change in Hawthorn, isn't it?
Yeah, and lots of renters, around Camberwell Junction sort of area. So that remains demographically very problematic for us. Q is more asset owners, and it's a great result for the Liberal Party that she's won, because, frankly, we're pretty thin when it comes to talent at the moment. And she is the future there. Now, as far as the federal implications, I think, it means that...